All right, folks. And I hope y'all just went right on over to the second video. Part two, Brother Lenwood. So, in this section, he's going to give us a little bit about some of those practical things that we can use to think about these social determinants of health and how we can actually implement them in our own life. So, again, check this out. This is more fire. So, Brother Lenwood, hey, man, so here's the question I got for you. Last question for you.
Yes, sir.
So, man, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of uncertainty right now.
Yeah.
So what would you offer to people who are out there doing this work, particularly in the line of work you're doing in public health, about ways that we can think about doing this work differently? And then also, what would you offer to people just as a way to be able to get through the uncertainty in this time of COVID and George Floyd? Like, what would you offer to people in this moment as a way to think about this work and getting through these troubled times?
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's a great question, yo. It, because it doesn't seem like it because we live in a capitalistic society, and specifically, we live in a heteronormative, patriarchal, white supremacist capitalistic society. So if you if you ain't a man, if you're not straight, if you're not white, then and if you don't have capital, the likelihood of you realizing, the likelihood of you recognizing the options that you have for wellness is low, right?
Mm,
Um, because everything, most everything, even with the new age that we living in now, the Me Too era and the Black Lives Matter era. Excuse my, I know this sounds like it's dripping with sarcasm, but there's some healthy skepticism that I have in terms of how long all of this, diverse support is going to last, just because of the compendium of evidence that we have to suggest that as soon as this joint ain't making no more dollars, it ain't gonna make sense to folk no more. Mm. So what I think some things that can be helpful is in in line with what you were mentioning earlier. Scarcity is a tactic for a capitalistic society, right? You can't sell folk stuff if they don't think that they need stuff, or if they don't think the stuff is going to run out, right? If you teach folk abundance, if you help folks to see how much they actually have and how much they actually don't need, that's not capitalism anymore. That's something else, right?
right.
So I think that the illnesses, specifically the two illnesses that are running rampant now, the OG illness, like I mentioned earlier, racism, that's been running rampant. The new illness, the young buck illness, is running rampant, COVID-19. Both of them are based on capitalism, especially here in the United States. And the reason that I say that is because prevention is actually cheaper than correction. So when you incorporate or when you implement preventative measures, it costs 10% in some instances the cost of correcting a specific illness after the illness has already taken place. You might spend 10% in terms of prevention. So helping folks to see that even though they might not have everything that they want, we most definitely have most of what we need. And a lot of what we need is based, in my humble opinion, on social capital. In other words, what we exchange between each other. I'm not necessarily talking about a bartering system. I'm actually talking about the healing effects of camaraderie. Like
Right.
I actually feel better talking to you right now because of how much I care and love for you and how much I know you care and love for me. You know what I'm saying? Having the privilege and having the opportunity to make genuine, meaningful connections with folk is healthy. Um, but that requires time, it requires space, and it requires a peace of mind that the people that you are around aren't actually trying to get over on you, that they're not actually trying to get something from you. And where that comes from is a scarcity based perspective or a deficit based perspective within the individual. So if as an individual, if I'm looking at myself and I'm saying that, well, I don't have this, I don't know this, or I want this, or I don't have this yet. Oh, this dude got that. He probably think that he all this and that. Or, oh, she got that. Look at her. She thinks she cute, right? All these things actually getting in the way of us making genuine, meaningful connections with each other. Social determinants of health is actually working to make us sicker, right? It's helping to make us sicker. So one of the things that I would suggest or that I would offer is self-love practices that would get people in touch with who they are, get people to start peeling back some of the layers of themselves, right? Right now, even though things are starting to open up back again, and again, in my humble opinion, prematurely, even though things are starting to open back up again, life isn't what it was before the virus, hit. It's a whole lot slower right now. We spending a whole lot more time in, one specific place. We might not necessarily be at home, but we're not running around like we used to. We're not going to here and we're not going to here. So that time and that space allows us the opportunity. Whether or not we take advantage of it is something else, or whether or not we understand that we have the privilege to take advantage of it is something else. But it allows us the opportunity to actually spend time with ourselves. And for a lot of people, it's really that's scary. That's difficult. Like, oh man, I ain't never spent no time with myself or by myself before. That's scary. And to me, it's like, well, what else you gonna do? Where you gonna go? Right? Give it a shot. I know how difficult it is. I know how hard it is. I know how uncomfortable it is. But these are preventative efforts that we're engaging in, right? When I think about George Floyd, but really when I think about, even before George Floyd uttered that on his way, into transition, Eric Garner uttered that on his way into transition when a police officer was strangling him. I can't breathe. The thing that I would implore folks to keep in mind is that your breath is absolutely positively everything. Your breath is absolutely positively everything. I just learned this, and I love telling people this because it's so profound to me. Spirit is based on the Latin word spiritus. Spiritus literally translates to breath. So when we think about spirit, it is based on breath. The Holy Spirit is considered the breath of God. What?
Hello?
Come on, man. And you said you wasn't gonna fit the preach, man. I'm sorry. I think I might be preaching a little bit, man. But dig it.
Collection plate out here, boy.
But dig it. If the more in touch you are with your breath, the more in touch you are with your spirit. The more in touch you are with your spirit, the bigger you see yourself as being. And so when we come into contact with people who want to minimize us or devalue us or marginalize us or put us to the side or decenter us, they literally cannot do it because we are in touch with our spirit, and our spirit is way bigger than that. You can't do it. You can't do it. So I will not get a t-shirt. I will not write on my sign, I can't breathe, because I will not give any group, any person outside of me the privilege of taking my spirit. You will not take my breath. You will not. You will not take my spirit. And I think that if folk really understood just how semantics work, just how words can play such a significant role in their life outcomes, I think that it would give them pause, and it might encourage them to engage in some of this self-love talk, like I'm saying. Race, black, white, these are words. They started out as words. Race is a social construct. It's a social construct. It was created for, divisive purposes. And specifically, the stuff that was getting divided, money. So they had to come up with the term race to be able to delineate who gets federal funds and who does not get federal funds, who has access and who does not have access. That's the basis of race in this country. That's what race is based on. Race is a word. Decades, centuries later, we come to see how this term has profound influences on health outcomes. What if, this is what I would tell folks, what if we paid attention to the words that we say about ourselves? What if we remove the privilege of other people in terms of how they describe us and how in terms of how they talk about us? If you're not doing something to at least see me as I am, then I don't need to fool with you. Because if you're trying to minimize me, then that's you are literally increasing the likelihood that I could die. Because if I'm listening to you and if I hear you yang 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 enough, then I'm going to internalize that. And as soon as I internalize that, then guess what? I can't breathe. You got my spirit. And if I let you take my spirit,
it's a wrap.
Then that's it. Self-love. That's what I would offer, folks. And it's practices and things like that I would be able to suggest. Some that I came up with, but we got to get in touch with ourselves. And I think that we have this perfect opportunity. Well, we have this significant chance right now. It's not perfect because there's a whole lot of imperfect stuff. There's a whole lot of uncomfortable stuff that's happening while we're in this moment. But I don't think that it has to be a privilege of the well-resourced to be able to get in touch with yourself and to give yourself a little bit more love.
Ooh. Yeah, we just need a piano playing in the background right now. Reverend Lenwood up there giving a word this afternoon.
We're going to ask Sister Bertha to come through with a B selection right now.
Hey, preach. Hey, what you just said is, I think, really important because I think, it goes back to that old saying about, what sticks and stones may make my bones, but words never hurt me kind of thing, right?
Yes,
and sticks and stones will hurt you.
Yeah.
But if you hear words long enough, they gonna hurt you too, right? You can tell a kid, particularly, when we think about it in the educational sense, right? If you tell a kid they're bad enough or they're dumb enough times, that becomes who they believe they think they are right now. And there goes some things about when we talk about, can we have more black people, black teachers in schools, more black educators, where some of those things can be interrupted, right? But even still, we carry our own, you and I have talked about this. Like we have to ask ourselves, well, how often have I been Amy Cooper, right?
Yes, sir.
In his book, How to Be Anti-Racist, brings us up about, well, how do we even interrupt our own thinking around what we give to other people who often look like us, right? So we're in that capacity of self-love and helping people to understand that, like, hey, you are that thing, you are somebody, I am somebody. That's where those things get heightened because, that is one of the first ways that we can be able to work through some of these traumas that have existed is by helping the people to understand that your skin tone is beautiful. It's a magnificent thing. So therefore, when you hear those other people who may say something different from you, that ain't it. That ain't that noise you want to be around, man.
No.
And It is that self-love thing is important. And more importantly, I think when we think about this work in the long term around social justice and equity, self-work is the foundation. Like
Ooh,
I can't think differently about those patients that I look at each and every day. I could care less because then I still won't believe the fact that they actually have pain.
yes, sir.
That self-work is foundational. Being able to
Yeah,
interrupt my own because you can have all the what culturally relevant pedagogy you want.
come on,
All of it. You
yeah.
can all the Alice Walker books. You know, you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah,
give all of it, every
yeah,
bit of all you want, but that don't mean nothing gonna be interrupted by just having I can give you a whole lot of black authors, but that don't mean nothing,
yes, sir.
you know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey,
It,
boy, you
the,
know what? I appreciate this preacher you gave me tonight, man, because I
man.
don't know things about myself. You know what I'm saying? After this, and be like, ooh, you
Doc,
know,
you said something though that I want to make sure to not miss the opportunity to capitalize on. You said self work is the foundational work. Self work in that regard is truly radical.
ooh,
And the again, we talking about words. I love etymology. I love words, but I love to learn where words come from because I understand that that's what gives them power. When you talk about the word radical, is what I think is the Latin translation is root, right?
mm,
So when you talk about uh, a radical occurrence, you're talking about the root, the foundational, the OG occurrence, right? Where did what how did this occurrence start? It's the radical inception. That's what it's called, right? So when you think about what you just mentioned in terms of how teachers engage with students, in terms of how students engage with each other, in terms of how doctors engage with their patients, if they don't engage in that radical work, that radical self-love, then you are absolutely positively right. They could go through all these cultural competency trainings, all these culturally relevant pedagogies that they could have, but it won't mean a doggone thing because they will see it as a role that they have to play. They've been given the script, the culturally relevant or culturally competent, script. Okay, I have to say this to you now, and I have to say it to you in this way. And okay, turn the page. And now that we are engaged in a, come on, man.
I'm sorry. That's funny because like that's how we give it to be, and that's what people go to conferences expecting. Like they want the script about like, well, how
Stop.
do I make sure that all the black kids get treated really right? And
They
yeah,
writing notes. They burning holes in their paper. They,
hey,
messing up their keyboard.
and you know they always like, oh, can you repeat that word again? What was the
Right.
line? How am I
Because I
supposed
need
to
to say that.
let me and then they
Mhm.
let me practice. Let me practice really quick on you. Get out of
Can
here.
we role play? Nah, man. Feel it. Feel it. You better let that shit get in your spirit. You got to feel it. You
Ooh,
got to feel it. Well, it was you that told me. It was either you, brother Steve. It was brother Stephen that said this, and he was talking about James Baldwin, and he was saying that the oppressor also suffers. You know what I'm saying? Because the oppressor is also is also not in touch with their own humanity. And if you are not in touch with your own humanity, then how is it that you can treat anybody else as a human?
right.
Anybody else. If you don't know what it actually means to be a human, then how can you treat anybody else as a human being? You have no concept whatsoever of that.
None. Self-love, brother.
Come on, man.
And more importantly, self-work.
Bam.
Ugh.
We got you better work. You gotta do that work. Nah, 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 nah. Yeah.
I'm saying, shout out to you, man. Hey man, I appreciate you spend a little time with me today, man.
Yeah,
You know,
bro.
hey, before we get out this thing, man, represent for the HBCU life out
Yes,
here.
sir. Yes,
You know,
sir.
I know the one, but I'm just saying, HBCU out here doing that work. You feel me? You know what I'm saying?
Man. Hey, I tell you what, man. I grew up. You didn't. I didn't get to take you down home when you came to visit, so that you got to come back. But
Yeah.
the place where I grew up in Maryland, man, it was an interesting place. I didn't realize the significance of the positive significance of my blackness until I got to Morgan State.
Right.
And I didn't know about so many. I didn't know who Marcus Garvey was. I barely knew who Thurgood Marshall was. I barely knew who Thurgood Marshall was. And we got a doggone airport named after him
Whole
in
airport,
Maryland
bro.
now.
Whole airport.
Come on, man. And so when I was in elementary school and stuff, when I was in grade school, high school, no, we didn't have the airport, but all I knew was Thurgood Marshall's, like, the first black, Supreme Court justice. That's about it. I didn't know any of this brother's body of work. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? But anyway, at the end of the day, if Morgan didn't teach me anything, it taught me self-worth, because I had professors that, bro, when I tell you they would not let me fail, they would not let me dim my light, they would not let me minimize myself, and I mean, they was not having it. They was not having it. That's the significant. That's one of the most exciting things that I'm. That's one of the things that I'm excited the most about being back here, is that I get to do that now. But HBCUs, man, not it's a beautiful thing, primarily for me because of that, man. Oh, this break brought to you by Bud Light Lime. Bud Light Lime, when you're having an interview and you want to drink.
Yeah, man. I mean, computer went to sleep out here, boy. Said, "Hey, I'm done
Oh
with you,
man,
man." Dude showed up. Yeah, but what were you saying, brother?
just talking about the significance of
Yeah, they wouldn't let you
um,
fail.
they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. Would not happen. Would not happen.
That's
Bro,
crazy.
my stats professor is still at Morgan.
Mm.
she she been there. She just retired end of this semester. She was there 50 years, bro.
Woo.
A white lady at that.
Dang.
50 years. I think she's Jewish, as a matter of fact. 50 years, bro.
Whole 50.
Man, over 50 for real, for real. She 50 and some change.
Mm.
And the level of investment that she had when I first started teaching stats, I was like, man, I can't wait to tell Dr. Perino that I teach stats now, because I know
Yeah.
she gonna laugh. She gonna laugh. She was like, you ain't teaching no stats. Not the student that you was. You ain't teaching nobody. No, just joking.
Yeah.
Man. And the when I saw her at my interview, uh, I went back and I met up with my mentor, black lady, Dr. Tara Bowen Reed. Man, she talk about it. She the main one that ain't let us fail. She was like, "Oh no, that's not good enough. That's some
Yeah.
foolishness. You need to go back." Met with her, went saw Dr. Perino. Say, "Hey, Lenwood Hayman." And she was looking at me. She was like, "Lenwood Hayman?
I know that. Where that boy from? Who is
You're
that?
Lenny. That's who that is. That's Lenny." She was like, "Oh, I definitely remember you," and all this stuff. And man, this lady then remembered uh, some survey that I created my senior year of undergrad, and she said it had she was only slightly exaggerating. She was like, it had like 800 some variables in it. She had to keep telling me to dial it back. And I was like, yeah, I had to learn the hard way that I can't look at everything
They go
all at
big,
once.
baby.
Way too big. And she remembered that. That's the kind of instruction that I had, you know what I'm saying, in college, that she remembered me. And I graduated from there in 2002, man. It's 18 years later. She remembered my name and she remembered my senior project. Come on, man.
Yeah. That's beauty, man.
It is, man.
HBCU life. Ain't nothing about it, man.
Ain't nothing like it, bro.
I enjoyed my time at the PWI, Colorado State, all day, but I'm just saying that HBCU life just on a different level, man. You know what I'm saying? Hey, look, the first time I ever realized that, like, that HBCU, like, I went to visit one of my homies. You know what I'm saying?
I'll say homecoming.
We sitting out in the quad stunting. And he started hiding, you know what I'm saying? Started ducking. I'm like, why the fool ducking and dodging? We out here doing that thing. You know what I'm saying? That boy, here come his professor. Look, ooh, boy, you in trouble. Didn't you see you in class today? Ooh, boy, you gotta get up. Don't get me in trouble because you decided you want to hang out with me in the quad. You feel what I'm saying? Hey, boy, I tell you, boy, they be knowing where you at. Expectation, man. Expectation. My brother, you wasn't in class today. Where you was at?
Yep.
HBCU life all day. I like the PWI, man, but HBCU life, man. Y'all better get your life together out here. Yeah, man. All right, Lenny, boy. I know it's late out there on the East Coast, man, but I sure appreciate your time, man.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure. Anytime for you, bro.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna talk. I'll probably text you tomorrow and chat about something anyway, man.
All right, Doc.
All right, man. I'll holler at you, brother.
Yes, sir. Have a good night, man.
Yeah, be well. I never liked it. So quit tripping. Like, subscribe, share. But I really hope y'all got something out of that. Hopefully, Brother Lenwood will come and join us a little bit. By a little bit, maybe next month. I don't know. If you like it, let us know. But I know it was fire.